which Saints make you feel better about the 2025 season going into that? Basically, we talked about Alvin Kamara the other day being unanimously almost a team MVP of this season. But what other players are seen as pillars, building blocks, however you want to categorize them, going into next year?
Top of the list. I mean, for me, he's going to get healthy. He's going to come back. He's going to keep playing. And for me, it's Chris Olave. But I think you do need to get Chris Olave into a different type of role to where he's not necessarily being leaned on as like Philly has a guy to offset the Slim Reaper, right? Like you got to get someone to offset Chris Olave so that he can be in a Devonta Smith type of role. And he can do a little bit more. Devonta Smith is like 160, 170 pounds. Like he isn't a huge dude. Those types of players can be like some of your most explosive guys. They can go in the Super Bowl and get you 100 yards. Like totally fine to be relying on them to be difference makers, but I think you got to set him up into a better position. But I think at the top of the list, for me, he's the number one pick still of guys I feel good about, but he does need to get healthy. He needs to take care of himself. I still don't get the sense that there's anything that's a major rush there. I think that if maybe it got to a point where there was like playoffs are on the line or whatever, like maybe there's a pedal to the metal, but I think right now, like the best course of action is just to chill and to not play until next year probably. And I think that's kind of on the table right now as far as that decision goes. It could obviously change, but I don't get the sense that there's a huge rush for it, and that's what he should be doing right now. But he's still somebody I'm extremely optimistic about when he's on a football field.
Yeah, I hate the idea that if the Saints get to like 500, that would change his decision. But
I don't think it would change his, but I think if it's like end of the season, like
I get it.
I probably preface that the wrong way, but
no.
I don't even think
right.
I don't even think it's
right,
a thought right now. But I don't think he puts his long-term health over the to get a 500 team, the NFC South title or whatever. Like,
but it's probably, to be fair, it's probably looking at it backwards. Like he might feel he might have a clearance, he might have a desire to play, but if they're mathematically eliminated, it's just not worth it at all. If they were still in the playoff hunt, would it be like? I hate that that's a factor, but yes, the second part of what I was gonna agree with is if they get mathematically eliminated, even if he's like as cleared can be and feels as good can be, there's just no reason to even put that in.
And I think I'm sorry, like I probably didn't explain that the right way. Like I think my understanding of it, and I haven't been told this, so I'm not reporting anything, like just kind of gathering it, talking to people. Okay, what does this all mean? How are people looking at it? Like my interpretation of it is that it's not even really a conversation right now as far as like when you're going to play, can you play, like should you play? I don't know. And again, I'm just reading tea leaves. Like I don't know if you're looking at it where it's like, well, okay, maybe now it's like, where's this at? Where does it look? Should we be thinking about, is it okay in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? Like if they got to a point, but I don't even think anybody's it's not even worth having those conversations right now. That's just how I kind of read it.
Well, yeah, don't even have those conversations. Like, I guess you have those conversations, like I said, if the team, like, but it should be a absolute, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I'm thinking of it through my own mind. It should absolutely be a non-discussion if they're not going to the playoffs. Like,
and I don't think it is.
Should it be a discussion if they get back in playoff contention? I don't know. I hate what I was going to say is I'm not trying to say that that's what the team is thinking. That's what he's thinking. I hate that I'm even thinking it, that, what if they win 4 more games? Should we revisit? Like, I hate that I even think that way, but definitely if they don't make the playoffs, don't even consider it. But yeah, he's high on this list of, and that's, part of the reason why it's long-term. I mean, we're talking about a guy who could be the number one building block for this team for years to come. The long-term is so important with him. What makes you feel best about 2025? Speaking of injuries, to me, I think it's Eric McCoy. I think we have identified him even more than ever when he's been hurt as being so pivotal to this team. We're going to find out today if there's any chance of him playing this week, I think. But God, when he's been on the field, they've been incredible. When he's been off the field, he's been missed so much. And like, he's the very first name I thought of, even ahead of Chris Olave, when it came to, all right, like what assets do they have, that are young, in their prime, build around guys. And it's funny because my number 2, not to jump ahead, but my number 2 is probably Tali Fuaga. I don't think he's arrived yet, but it feels like they hit on a good first-round pick with the potential to grow and being a first-round talent. And I think it's kind of funny that two of my top three are probably on the offensive line because I don't know how good I feel about the offensive line as a whole, but that's a pretty good starting point to have two guys on the offensive line that I do think are real assets to build around.
My 1 and my 3 are on the offensive line. Fuaga was my number 1. Eric McCoy, of course, was going to be my number 1 because his absence spoke way more volumes on the field. But I was like, I already knew one of y'all were going to take it, so I just left it completely off my board. But Fuaga being my number 1 because some of the reasons, like you said, his youth, him showing already with the veterans out that he can still sustain some things on the field. Of course, there's some growth. It's just his first, 11 games of his career, so he still has a ways to go. But from what he's shown so far, definitely still good. But my number 2 is Pete Werner. Over the summer, they paid him to stay here, to continue the defensive torch that DeMario has set. And I think he just continues to show why he is pretty much a long-term kind of player down here because of his physicality, because of his intellect, because of different things that he brings to the table, because they bought Willie in the offseason to kind of compete for that job, and he's pretty much ran away with it.
It's interesting. I feel good about Pete Werner. I feel good about Chris Olave, and I kind of want both of those guys to be number 2s. As good as I feel about him, Nick put it well. Olave can be your number 1, but he needs to be a complement with somebody. And by the way, I've never heard the term Slim Reaper before. I don't know how that. I don't know how that missed me, but that is the perfect name for what Olave could and should be.
Yeah, that's. I
they
mean,
got a couple.
I don't know how it missed me.
Katie Sticks from A-Meat, which is Devonta Smith, and
I don't know how it missed me, but
if you skinny and you good, you get that
name.
Yeah.
My bad, but I love it.
Yeah.
You got anyone else that
not really
qualifies for this?
I mean, I feel good about some other guys. I'm cool with Alante being part of my future. I'm not down on Kool-Aid yet. I think I'm still kind of excited about having him on the team if I'm the Saints. But I mean, that's probably about it as far as young guys right now that you're kind of treating as, in the terms of building block. I don't know that there's anyone that I feel like is foundationally the centerpiece of a rebuild or anything like that. So, Shaheed, obviously someone you feel good about too, but yeah, I think that probably exhausts the list for me.
Yeah, I don't mind Brzee being a part of my team. I don't think he's necessarily build around guy, but I want him on a defensive line that needs to be revamped. Carl Granderson's still an asset that they have at a decent price. Not a build around guy, but somebody you're gonna have as part of your rotation. I'd put Cesar Ruiz in that same category. But yeah, we're definitely getting to a different tier with those guys. What about Derek Carr? 33. I should have his age up right now. Does he fall into the asset category? Or is he too old? Because we're not mentioning Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, Alvin Kamara, because we're talking about guys who probably have a clock on that. When we're talking about,
I mean, obviously you're trying to replace him.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's out.
Yeah, he's more in that category. He's more in that category.
It's not even the age. It's just someone that you're trying to improve upon. That's the opposite of a building block.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a really good point. And we'd have to go through every team with a comb to answer this question, but just your gut feeling when we listed the guys we just listed is, are they a bottom 5 team and a bottom 10 team? Are they better than some people think? I remember Bill Barnwell ranked them as the team with the bleakest future. I know their cap situation had something to do with that, but those guys we just listed, how many teams do we think are worse off than the Saints if you're going to list off future assets? Are they probably bottom 10?
McCoy, Olave, Shaheed,
Fuaga, Werner, Alante,
and McKinstry. There's teams that are in a rebuild right now who still haven't hit on anything.
That's got to be better than the Panthers.
Right.
It feels like it might be better than the Titans, the Raiders. There's probably a lot of teams worse off. But.
What are we talking about here? In what sense?
If you were going to do this exercise for all 32 teams, is that a decent cupboard or is that
It's a decent cupboard. I mean, but it depends what you have around it too. And I still think they got some decent other old guys on the team. Taysom's an asset. You aren't including them in here, so it kind of makes it hard to compare it to the the Panthers, I don't know, if you're just stripping it down, though, like, yeah, probably not, like, because you don't have a Pro Bowler or an All Pro in your young core right now, so that's probably not a great situation. I guess McCoy's one, but I mean, if your center's your only Pro Bowler, that's probably not a good or great situation to be in. So yeah, it's probably bottom half of the league for sure. But I still think they have some. It's tough to make the total comparison because, like, you know, some of these other guys, I still think you can be competitive with them. Derek Carr, you can be competitive with, but he isn't part of your prognosticating for 10 years down the road or anything like that.
I understand. The thing that kind of stuck out to me is that there is only one A-ish tier player in McCoy. McCoy is automatically an A-tier player, but Chris Olave, we talked about it kind of off and on, that fringe between the first and second tier. When he comes back, if they bring in somebody to kind of compliment him, to take away some things, can he jump to that A-tier?
I mean, he's an A-tier player to me, so I'm not.
Okay.
I don't even, you know, he is. He's an A-tier talent. He got hurt this year. I mean, he's 1,000-yard guys first couple of years. I mean, that's an A-tier player. You wouldn't, if I ask you Slim Reaper, is he A-tier? You're going to be like, yeah, he's had 2,000-yard seasons. You know, like, so he's absolutely an A-tier talent, A-tier player. He just had a lot of concussions this year.
I thought Olave could be better than Devontae Smith, and I don't put Devontae Smith in that category. So I hope Olave is better. I mean, like we said, the true number ones, and you know, when we talked about ones who could be true number ones at his size, you know, I think we said Stephon Diggs. I think we said maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though he plays a little more physical. I don't think we've seen Olave get there yet, but I keep thinking he has the talent to get there, and I think it was the concussions that stopped him from getting there this year. I think he was going to get there this year.
Man had 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns last year. That's pretty good to me. Like that's a building block to me. And on a winning team, that player's a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's an A-tier player to me. A-tier talent for sure. With Pete Carmichael as his offensive coordinator.
That's a good point.
I mean, playing the last 5 games with the sprained ankle. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what else he needs to show. Like, he's shown it to me for what he is.
Okay.
Is he better than Mike Thomas? No, he's not. But like, you drafted a 6-foot-tall receiver that's 185 pounds. Like, I think he's absolutely giving and producing at the height of that level that he should be. And I mean, I just don't. I don't have a problem with it. Like, he's A-tier for what he is within the definition of it. Like, I'm not looking for him to be Mike Evans. Like, I think it's just a completely different type of player. So for the role that he should be in, I think is that, you know, not the X receiver as the Z. Like, I think he is an A-tier Z receiver 100% on any team in the league. And I think if you are a playoff team and you could get him, I mean, that guy he could change your team. Like, if you drop him on a contender, like, I think he changes that team. So I mean, he's absolutely. I think he's going to get paid like it too when he hits the market if he's healthy.